to computer, and we are off. Am I recording? She says, am I recording? I am. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our next 10-minute FM lesson. For those who don't know me, I'm Alana Dunoff. My quick backstory, I've got about 30 years into facilities management, mostly as a strategic facilities planner and a project manager. I also am an FM educator. I've been teaching for about 18 years and as an adjunct professor. Currently at Temple University, I've got a class of seniors who are going to start looking for jobs and juniors who are looking for internships. So if you're interested, please let me know. And then my final hat is I am an FM qualified instructor to teach two fantastic FM credentials, both the Pro FM and the IFMA FMP. So today's topic is near and dear, of course, to my passionate heart around education, the value of professional development and training. But I realized what probably was a better title for what I wanted to talk about today was really about building bench strength. How do we strengthen ourselves and our teams, our organization, so that they produce and perform and are productive for us in our organizations, as well as our own selves and where we want to be when we think about our futures and our careers. So I want to start here because I think that this idea is sort of the thing I like to keep in my head, that our potential as leaders is not determined by necessarily what we do individually, but our ability to strengthen the people around us. Because when they do a good job, it makes us look good, right? And the people we have hired internally and externally, when they're strong, when they have the right skills, we also stand out because we're part of that larger team. So our goal in FM and as FM leaders and managers is really about creating an organization, a department that's resilient and flexible and adaptable and knowledgeable team so that we can be seen as a critical resource for our organization. So the question becomes, how do we build that team? How do we build the people around us to support the organization? And how do we build ourselves to lead that team so that we can have such a strong group of people supporting the organization? So I have 4 ideas, sort of techniques or strategies that I want to share with you in this sort of big world of professional development and training. So the first one is around the idea of organizational development, or OD, which is a whole concept sort of by itself. But a couple ideas I wanted to share with you is that organizational development is about building organizational resilience. And here's a couple techniques to consider for yourself or for the people who work for you. The first one is the idea around empowerment. And we use that term empowerment quite a bit. But really what empowerment is in the OD world, it's really about giving people who have the right expertise decision rights, the ability to make a decision. When you have somebody who works for you and they might go out and collect information and come back to you and say, hey, what do I do, boss? Right? And you make the decision. But if you allow them to make the decision, you are empowering them. You are giving them an extra level of responsibility. And that's a way of giving someone growth, letting them move from just the information gatherer to being able to make decisions. And that's what empowerment means here. Another technique is called involvement. Involvement is about getting people more engaged in processes like continuous improvement and performance monitoring, and having them have sort of a stake in that process. I like to think of this particularly around our vendor partners, having them be involved and give them a reason to sort of want to engage. So for example, if we think of your vendor, if you have a custodial vendor, they are working for you, but they work for lots of other companies too. And maybe someone's doing something better than you are. Bringing them into that process and getting them involved and bringing them in gives them growth and opportunity and also has benefit to you. And then the last one is delegation. So if empowerment is just about decision rights and sort of the beginning of the process, delegation is much bigger. It's about responsibility and accountability for that complete task. And you can see how each one of these kind of grow on each other. So as a manager and a leader, you can decide what level you're going to give your employees in order to stretch them, to give them opportunities to grow and learn in their jobs. The next idea is about strengthening performance, and this is more internal. First off is thinking about the behaviors that you model. What do you show your people? Are you sitting behind the desk all day? Or are you out walking about and on the floor? What you do, they will see. Just like in a parent situation, they model your behavior. So think about how you perform and what you do as that leader and manager, and they will follow and encourage that. Coaching is, think about like the baseball sort of coaching and sort of building that strength. When you coach somebody, you are giving them a skill, you're showing them how to do something, and then you're watching them do it and making sure they're doing it right and giving them that feedback along the way. Feedback and that kind of performance review is also important for people helping people grow. If you don't know what you're doing wrong and don't know what you're doing well, how do you know how to get better? So coaching is important. And then there's training. And training can happen on the job. There's a lot of training that happens on the job where you're learning along the way. Maybe somebody who's new in the organization with somebody who's more senior, and you pit them together and you have them shadow and learn from each other. That transfer of learning and knowledge that happens internally. Another critical way that we can strengthen performance, strengthen our bench. The next one is cross-training. And I love this idea of cross-training more and more. Just in the beginning of the pandemic, I was working with a client and we were working on building a training program from them. And then COVID happened and the entire third shift was out. And now the director of facilities of operations team had to fill in for third shift. And he realized he had no idea what third shift did anymore. He didn't know the processes that they did. He wasn't sure how to do the water treatment sampling anymore. And there was no information available. And we had been talking about this idea of cross-training, about the idea of sharing the workload. And so now they're putting in place an opportunity for the people on different shifts to get a little bit of exposure at the different shifts so they can learn what's happening, so that the team can be flexible and resilient and pitch in for each other. And you can think of the same thing if you have a couple of different supervisors that might manage each of their own buildings. Every couple months or once a year, switch it up and let them manage another building. It will not only give them satisfaction because they get to learn something, see a little bit different, but they'll also get to talk to each other more. And maybe there are things that they can do better and streamlined. Here's what I was doing in my building and here's what you're doing in your building. Maybe we should be doing something different. So it's a way to strengthen the resilience of your organization by giving them more, and it also benefits you in the end as well. And then the last idea is around career development or succession planning. We don't hear so much of the term succession planning anymore. I don't know where that went. And it's kind of a shame because it's such an important part. Where do you want to be in a couple years? Who's going to fill your shoes when you take the next opportunity? When you look at your organization, how do you ensure that there's someone to step up and to have them grow? It is an important part of our leadership and management skills to make sure that our people are not staying in the same place, that they're not static, that they have opportunities to grow, because that's what keeps people engaged and connected. Career development and succession planning, there's so many strategies around this. Of course, there's the formal education route, right? Somebody doesn't have a skill, so they can get licensing or credentials or certificates or degrees. That's one path. But then there's lots of informal training as well. Things like, hey, there's a special project happening in an organization. I'm going to get so-and-so involved in that special project to open their eyes and let them see more about the organization so that they can learn and grow. There's a concept called job enlargement. And job enlargement says, hey, I'm going to give you something similar in responsibility, but just something else. Because when I have something else, I feel good. I feel like I've gotten more responsibility. Again, that idea of empowerment and delegation. Job rotation is very similar to cross-training, where you're kind of exposing people to similar work and roles. Job enrichment is about adding new responsibilities. That's about adding levels of accountability. That's that delegation that we talk about. And if you remember a couple of weeks ago, I was talking about Herzberg's motivation theory and what's really about job satisfaction. Job satisfaction centers around being enriched, being recognized, being challenged for the work that's happening. And then the last idea is around mentoring and coaching, which I mentioned before. And this is about finding those people who will support you in your career, who gives you that little nudge, who helped you get to your position. How do you do that for somebody else? There's so many ways that we can engage and help ourselves and other people in our organization. And good leaders look for these opportunities to make their people better so that you can move on and someone can fill your role at one point. So wrapping up, so what's the value of professional development and training? I think it's about the power of investing in yourself and your staff, because when you learn and grow, the opportunities are endless. New perspectives, new approaches you get to learn. There's opportunities for innovation and best practices, and the confidence, that extra spring in your step. There's some of you who I know on this call who've earned your FMP, and it feels so good when you've achieved it, and you know that the organization sees you a little bit differently for your excellence and your knowledge. I've also seen opportunities where organizations who have come together to learn together have a new shared goals, a new shared vision, and they share a new language together, which is also important. And I think it also leads to higher retention for an organization when you feel valued in your organization. I'm not going to go through all those stats there, but I pulled some of them out that I thought were interesting just to support the thing that we know in our gut, that learning and education is valuable and provides a ton of value, for the cost that it is. The cost of a class or the cost of extra training within your organization might be very minimal to compare to what it can give back and how you build your bench strength for your organization. And that is your 10-minute lesson. So we have one more to go. I got a little clap there. Thank you, David. We got one more to go in our series. Next week, Jim's going to be presenting on how to present to executives. He's been dying to do this presentation. I can't wait to see what he talks about. So we're going to start thinking about our next series. And if you have any suggestions for topics, feel free to throw them in the chat or email me. I would love to hear them. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that if you were interested, in February, I've got a couple classes that are going, both the IFMA FMP and the Pro FM class. So that's it, everybody. Thank you so much for participating. If you want to stick around and share any thoughts or comments, I'd love to hear them as well.